safe. So maybe that's a good thing because it means you're not missing out on being out in the field. I also wanted to just take a moment and acknowledge that today is Veterans Day, and we appreciate those who have served and what this day is meant to be about. Also, the fact that it was established on November the 11th, 1918. So I think we're making a full circle history here. I am Elizabeth Beggins. I am the Maryland Agriculture Outreach Specialist for the Million Acre Challenge. I live in Talbot County on the Eastern Shore, where I spent about 13 years as a market farmer before I shifted over to a farm service focus. Circling back, for those who've just entered the room, we do have a poll up. If you'd take a couple of minutes to just run through those questions. We're just trying to get a sense of who's in the room as we move forward with our presentation. So next slide, please. I think, Amanda, you can skip to the next one. Sorry about that. So I will acknowledge that behind the scenes today, we have our project director, Amanda Cather, and Lisa Garfield, who is the Future Harvest Manager for the Million Acre Challenge. We work as a trio on this project, along with a whole cohort of other team members from our partner organizations. This afternoon, though, we're here really to learn from Keith Ohlinger, who I'm going to introduce more fully in just a couple minutes. But I do want to spend just a quick overview, give a quick overview of the Million Acre Challenge, very brief, because our mission here is to hear from Keith. You'll see here the Million Acre Challenge mission and vision. You'll notice that we are a farmer-focused initiative. We really want to help explore and reveal ways that soil health can improve farmers' crops and livelihoods, while also contributing to positive environmental outcomes. Really, for us, farmers are the experts and farmers are part of the solution. So our goal at the Million Acre Challenge is to help them become more profitable by doing what they want to do anyway, to build soil and to build their ecosystems on and off the farm. One more time, if you came in after we mentioned this, we're going to take a couple seconds to fill out the poll that was displayed right at the beginning, if you can do that, and we'll wrap that up in about 30 seconds. Next slide. So as part of the Million Acre Challenge, a couple of the things that are happening that may be of interest to you are our soil health hubs, which are regional and collaborative opportunities for farmers to network and learn, and the Soil Health Benchmark Study, which is a PASA, Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Ag program, which we are fortunate enough to be including in our offerings. And so you'll be able to hear more about those in the future. And I'll, down the road in the slideshow today, I'll mention our social media channels and website information. So let's take a moment and wrap up the poll and see who's in the room with us today. All right. Awesome. I'm seeing mostly farmers, a handful of others. Welcome to both sets of folks. Lots of specialty crop producers, lots of livestock producers, some grain for human consumption. And the vast majority of folks here are farming on 0 to 9 acres, which is great. Although we do have at least one person who's in the 100 to 500 acre range. So this is great. This is what the Million Acre Challenge is all about. All farms, all farm types, all sizes. All righty, next slide, please, Amanda. So we are an inclusive project. Farmers who are committed to soil health, we know, are at many different stages of their soil health journeys. So to be counted, all you need to do is enroll. and start on that soil health path. Our social media channels, as I said a moment ago, are up and running. Our website is about to launch. We're still tweaking and making sure that it's as good as we can get it before it goes live. Look for that literally within the next few days to maybe a week. The website will include our enrollment survey. Our next Soil Health Hub meeting is December the 8th, and our next Soil Health to Go session like this is December the 9th. I'll review all of that again at the end of today's Lunch and Learn, so you'll have a chance to see it again. Next slide. All right, and now we get to the real heart of the matter. Hollinger is not a veteran. We had some conversation about his spent in the merchant marine, but he is a veteran farmer with extensive knowledge from many agricultural lenses. In addition to his work as a livestock producer, he has served the ag community in so many ways. You can see some of them listed here, and this is not an all-inclusive list. Howard County Soil Conservation District, the Farm Bureau, the Maryland Agriculture Commission, Future Harvest, the State Soil Conservation Committee, and the Maryland Forest Association. At Porch Farm in Howard County with his wife and daughters, he raises Irish Dexter cattle, Hog Island sheep, Gloucester Old Spot hogs, white Chinese geese, in addition to chickens, ducks, rabbits, and honeybees. So this farm and Keith clearly have a lot going on. By way of introducing Keith's commitment to soil health, I want to share just this brief video that was taken very recently on his farm by our own Lisa Garfield. Next slide. Amanda, I'm not hearing that this time around for some reason.
Yeah, I have the same issue here.
So we spread gypsum.
There we go. I hear it now. I don't know if you want to restart it, Amanda. I got it now.
Yep.
My name is Keith Ohlinger, and this is Porch Farm LLC. And what we did this month, we have pastures that we deal with. We are a livestock operation, and we're silvopasture, as you can see with the trees. So we spread gypsum, and then we also spread a 6 species warm season grass mix with big blue stem and little blue stem and some others. And then we also did a planting of tillage radishes. It was a little late in the season for tillage radishes, but we wanted to give them a chance to get out there. It's supposed to be a La Nina year, so it might be a little warmer. So we're hoping to get some of that growth on the seeds.
Well done. You're a star, Keith.
Boy, are we in trouble.
Next slide, Amanda, when you get a chance.
My name is Keith Ohlinger.
All righty. So as you heard, Keith uses many different kinds of techniques on his farm that are all geared toward improving his soil health. We won't have time today to get too deep into any one of them, but we want to try as best we can to offer a selection of things that we felt would be of interest and about which Keith has particular knowledge. So we're going to look at his animal selection process, his rotational grazing operation, his work in silvopasture creation and in creating biochar, and his keyline design, which is really innovative and interesting as well. And so without further input from me, I'm going to turn this over to Keith. We'll leave this slide up here just for a moment so you guys can kind of take a look at the questions that are going to be, Keith is going to be taking on with us. But at this point, we really want those of you here to allow yourselves to be seen. We're going to take the screen share down in just a second and get a chance to really make eye contact with each other. It's so hard in these coronavirus times to be separated like we are. So we're really looking to see faces and make some connections. That's what the Million Acre Challenge really wants to be about.
Well, thank you. It's an honor, and I'm humbled to be invited to be here. I just want to thank Lisa and Amanda and Elizabeth. These are wonderful folks to work with, so I'm grateful that they're having me here today. And I'm my fan is distracting. All right, hold on a second. Honey, can you shut off the fan? Sorry, we don't have a production studio. I just got what I got here. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions. I've left some extra time, so if I know some of you had to get on here and get gone. So if anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to stay on a little later for you. So the first question that they talked about: why is animal selection critical to soil health management, and what would you say are the key considerations? The main thing is that you have to think of we're in a holistic type of system. Everything impacts everything else. And so the considerations are definitely, you need to observe what is going on your farm. What are the things you're trying to do? What are the things you're trying to limit? But you have to understand that, like they say, every action has equal and opposite reaction. And so, for example, we're working on trying to get mulch out around all our trees. And the challenge with that is I've got to take a big giant trailer filled with mulch and all the equipment out into the field to drop that mulch. So then I end up, we run into potential for some compaction issues in our fields. It'll help the trees, it'll help that piece of the operation. If I've got to spread seeds, I'm out there driving around spreading seeds either with a no-till drill or with a broadcast spreader. So you can do them by hand, but on the bigger acreages, obviously that becomes a challenge. So the main thing is, as you start to look at all these different things, there's going to be pluses and minuses to everything. So you just have to try and look at what you're trying to do, how you want to achieve it, and try and do it with the least damage possible. As far as animal selection, I went with the animals that I went with because I was trying to get animals that were very good on grass, that were good mothers, that were, easy calvers, and they were not picky necessarily. They didn't have to be on just one type of grass, because we're trying to get between 75 and 100 species in all our pastures, so we have that diversity. And so I looked for not just the right type of animal, but the breeders that were raising them as close as I was to what my end result, I was looking for. For example, if you take a calf from a grain operation and you put it on grass, it may not make it. Or if you take an adult animal and you change its diet and change its environment so much, if you're in a very hot climate and you want to raise Highland cattle, that may not be a good fit. They're really shaggy to try and put in a very hot environment. So you're looking at what you have and what you're trying to achieve. I went with Irish Dexters because I've been in love with the breed since the 90s when I first came to be aware of them. I made a trip down to Costa Rica, and they were trying to stop deforestation of the rainforest there, and these smaller livestock were able to be more efficient on the smaller acreages. And that's when I first came in contact with them. And that's why I'm a big fan of the Irish Dexters. But the key is, again, selecting the right animal. So I'm not saying, everybody has to raise Irish Dexters. That's not at all what I'm saying. Whatever works best in your situation. The Hog Island sheep, they're very hardy. They browse just as much as they graze. So in a tree operation with a lot of berry bushes and other things, they do great. Our animals do eat Canada thistle. The Gloucester Old Spot hogs that we have, they're very friendly, very easy to work with. At least ours are. Not all animals, you get your genetic differences, in individuals, but for the most part, I've worked with Tamworth and with Gloucester Old Spot, and I enjoy both of those breeds. So that's discussing animal selection. Now, Elizabeth, I lost the screen, so I don't know what the next question was off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for that. And I think you may touch on some of this as you get to the next question, which is to tell us about your rotational grazing setup and how that impacts your farm's soil health.
Oh yeah, so the whole farm has been an evolution. When we got here, it had been in about 20 years ago. It had been in corn and soybeans. It had been hay for the last say 20 years, mainly Timothy grass and orchard grass. There were no boundary fences anywhere. The original owners leased all the farmland out to the neighbors, and they ran a German Shepherd breeding operation, and they had dog kennels here. So then that little Dutch barn that they had for the dog kennel operation got expanded to be a horse barn. The second owners had horses. They put in 3 horse paddocks with 4-board fence. And so that's how it came when I got here. So originally we were using T-posts and cattle panels and sheep and goat panels, and we'd move them every day. And then as the herd got bigger, we switched to electric fences and fiberglass posts that we'd move them in the ground. We have some tumble wheels, if anyone's ever heard of, the Gallagher stuff and tumble wheels. And we have a really strong fence charger. And then we moved back into kind of T-posts and woven wire and welded wire. But that also goes back to animal selection. You're not going to retain bison if you're going to try and do it in my system. They're just too big and strong. So you got to match your system to the critters you're trying to raise. And my dexters are pretty agreeable. Now we've done various different iterations of mob grazing where we've pushed 200,000 pounds an acre. We've done daily grazing. We've done weekly grazing. So it really depends on the effect that I'm trying to go for, given what the pastures look like, the time of year, what the animals look like. Are we in a drought? Have we not had rain for 2 weeks? Have we had a lot of rain for 2 weeks? This year we had a spell where, at least for us in Maryland, where we are here, it got really hot for several weeks. A lot of the cooler season grasses, went dormant or slowed down. And so I actually pulled them into one of the paddocks and we fed hay for about 2 weeks to give the paddocks a chance to recover. So I'm constantly looking at, I have a plan in general, and I know roughly in a quote unquote average year, what's an average year, but a quote unquote average year, what my intentions are, but then I'm watching it. And then at the end of this season, we mentioned that in the short video, we were going to do some warm season grasses. So I actually grazed it a little lower than I normally would have. And I wanted to have better soil to ground contact with those seeds that I was spreading. So that was again kind of a management decision and the way we grazed them. So normally I would have put the tillage radishes out sometime in August, but because I was grazing extra and going down, we had them out there longer. I didn't get to plant the tillage radishes until later. So Lisa, they did all come up. I don't know how big they're going to get, but they were looking good, So Lisa had come right after I had spread them that day, and we were talking about the video. So that's we've done all manner of things with the rotational grazing, and it's really just a matter of looking at your animals, looking at your soil, looking at your grass, making sure you're making the right decision for what's going on at that time.
Great. Thank you so much. I know that each one of these questions could have taken up our full 30 minutes. So it's
sure. So I'm trying to be quick.
I know. We have about 10 minutes left. I do want to encourage folks to put their questions in the chat box. We will carve out some time at the end for question answer, but if we don't get to them all, we'll have them captured there. Keith, could you just touch on your silvopasture operation and how that's coming along?
Yes. So we planted, I stopped counting at 15,000 trees. We planted hundreds of thousands of seeds. Part of the reason is tree fodder, acorns, honey locust pods, different things that'll help the operation. Nuts, we plant a lot of chestnuts and Chinese chestnuts and American chestnuts. We have a hog operation that at some point we want to start doing pastured hogs, and so that'll help with feed. Also microclimate to provide shade, to provide areas for nesting for wildlife. We participated in a nesting bird study throughout Maryland this year, and we have over 37 different types of birds, some of them fairly rare, so they were very excited about it. And I mentioned diversity in our forage. We do actively add native wildflowers and grasses, even though they're expensive as seed, but we add them to support the butterfly population and the pollinators. And so we really do have a really good looking diversity of things out here. So it was meant to be a whole ecological system. We have some locusts for nitrogen fixing, and thorns to create a living hedge, so that we'll essentially have these little wildlife corridors in between all of our commercial, our more production fields.
And I know that's something that farmers, our ancestor farmers used to do, building living hedges and keeping things, especially locusts and things like that, Osage orange, cut low, so that they didn't become full-fledged forests. They continued to maintain that hedgerow effect. Okay, a big one here, biochar. You're making your own.
Yes.
So let's just touch on that one too.
So because of all the trees we have a lot of material from the management and maintenance of the trees. And so we kind of have a hierarchy. So the bigger stuff we use for firewood. We do have a wood stove here on the farm that we can use to heat. And so big stuff goes for firewood. The smaller stuff, we're usually about 6 inches and below. We have a chipper. We have a 6-inch chipper here that we can run through the chipper, and we use straw. We use used horse bedding from local horse farms, and we use wood chips for bedding in our pig pens. Then we take that out, and when we clean out the pens, it can be anywhere 1 to 4 times a year, depending how much rain we've had. And we put that in windrows, and we windrow it to make compost. And so the smaller stuff, if I have a need, we'll actually make biochar. We'll make charcoal with it, and then it becomes biochar when we mix it in with the compost. So we make about 1,000 tons of compost here a year on the farm. The numbers that I've seen, I've done a lot of research into it, and it seems like they think 10 to 15% charcoal in that mixture is good, but that I'd need 100 tons of charcoal. Well, we're not there yet. We haven't reached that level. But what we do, we'll about once or twice a week, we'll do an open flame cap ring kiln. Right now, I've gotten Dr. Chris Adam is the inventor of the Adams retort. We're under license with them to develop 4 of their charcoal kilns. We've tried to get grants for units that are CHP, combined heat power units, where you burn wood chips in a pyrolysis, low oxygen environment to make a burnable gas that you pump into an engine generator set that then I can generate electricity for the farm. It burns extremely clean, and the byproduct is a very fine, high temperature charcoal that's great for fertility in the field. So we've fed it to our livestock, because then it goes in, it becomes inoculated in their digestive tract with all the good biology that's there. And then when they poop it out in the fields, and the worms and the dung beetles go to work on it, suddenly we get it buried, and it creates this multi-layered sponge of good organic matter and good material for the soil. So we kind of have a whole long iteration of different options that we have depending on what we need.
All right. Looks like we got about 5 minutes left. We haven't touched on keyline design yet. Amanda has a picture that she can share of kind of what that looks like on your farm. But let's just spend about a minute talking about that. I know you shared with me a little bit about it yesterday, Keith, and I think folks would appreciate hearing your perspective.
Sure. So essentially the keyline design, P.A. Yeomans wrote a book on it, Water for Every Farm, I think. And then Mark Shepard wrote a follow-up book on his page, which I think he called Water for Any Farm. So I might have the name switched. I apologize. I don't have him sitting next to me here, but I had gone out to Mark Shepard's New Forest Farm back in 2013, right after he wrote his book on restoration agriculture. And I did a 10-day permaculture design course out there, and we learned about keylining, met a lot of great people. And anyway, so if you look at this picture, the upper point where it bends, that upper row where it bends there, that tip of that bend is the key point of this whole valley on this side of the farm. And so that's the upper part, that it's the highest point in the valley that it's economical to store water. And so then it's each band, we call them a band, is 53 feet wide. There's 5 feet with a 2-foot fenced in area where the trees and bushes are planted. And then there's 48 feet of forage in between. And so the keyline is a swale and berm system that's meant to manage water. And so there's a thing called keyline plow. We did use the keyline plow on these fields right after we had put in the swales and the berms. And so essentially it's a ditch on the uphill side to help move water from the valleys back out to the ridges. It's at a 1-degree slope, which is the lowest slope that water flows. And so gravity wants to push the water from the hills into the valleys where it can concentrate and then run away or cause erosion. So by keeping the grasses tall, we slow down those raindrops, we help spread them out. And then anything that would start to sheet off in a heavy rain that isn't soaked in hits these swales and gets pushed back out to the ridges and given more time to soak in. Now the trees are planted on the berm.
Keith, I'm going to interrupt so that we
go
have
ahead.
time to get towards the end. So I think what we've done here is to sort of throw out like an a la carte soil health menu for pasture management. And you guys are going to have to circle back to us because I don't see any questions in the chat box. Everybody's just like a fire hose, right? So Keith, this is not Keith's first rodeo. He knows some stuff. So let's take him up on his offer of being available for information sharing. I want you all to know, as I mentioned before, we have a statewide soil health hub meeting coming up on Tuesday, December the 8th. The next one of these is December the 9th. We're going to be featuring different kinds of farmers from different production systems. Please engage with us on social media. There's our different handles listed there. We'd love to have you like and follow and share. Our website is coming. And I think we might have about 2 minutes for questions, and we'll just pop up our contact slide at the end so folks can also see that. There's our email addresses. You have the option to use them if there's something you really want to find out more about from us or from Keith. Does anybody have a quick question they'd like to throw out here before we close out?
Now you may have to read them to me.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and read questions from the chat. Do you stockpile forage for winter? And if so, what effects are you noticing on those fields with the recent unseasonably warm weather?
So I try to keep the animals off the fields from January 1st to May 1st. So we go into a specific area, I call it a sacrifice lot, but and we feed hay during that time. So I don't actually turn them back out onto the fields. I let everything stay tall. Now there's a couple reasons for that. One, I try and let the grass get a little higher. This year, because we were doing those plantings, like I mentioned, we didn't do that as much, but I want to make sure our wildlife has nesting areas and areas to overwinter, and I'm leaving up areas so that they have something they can eat during the winter time. And so that's what we do here.
That's great. It's so great to know how you do things and to also know that that may not be the way that works for everybody else.
Right.
All right, it looks like we're at time. I'm a stickler for that because we promised that to you all, and I don't want to take advantage of your time. It is precious. Thanks everybody for being here today. Keith, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Yep. It's just been great. And like the man said, he's available for future questions. And you have his email address there, and you have ours. We're counting on you to stay engaged, and thanks everybody so much.
Thanks everybody. Please stay safe out there and enjoy your holidays.